No voy tell you my name twice. You'll hear it once, you'll chew it in silence, and then you'll look around like they did, and you'll wonder why no one stood up before it was time. My name is Eno Maresca. I'm 63. And yes, I was a waiter. The one who polished glasses with a linen towel until they shone like they had a small moon trapped inside. The one who counted coins and hid his tips in a coffee jar behind a box of detergent. I was, and I'm not anymore. Not for years now. But I let the world keep seeing me in an apron, because no one suspects the man who walks with slumped shoulders, or the one who says yes, sir, like the words way down his tongue. This isn't an apology. It's a version. My version. And I'm telling it without adornment, because adornment is a fancy perfume that masks the real scent: old resentment, iron, salt. Malta smells like that when the tide goes out in Spinola Bay, when you walk early and the fishermen shake out their nets with that kind of superstitious patience. I was born watching those blue boats painted with the eye of Osiris, and I'm still here. I never left. I stayed when everyone said there was nothing here. I stayed when Alexia said she couldn't stand this island of stone and old marble. I stayed when she took our daughter, Lorenza, to the United States, as if the sky there were somehow higher, the days more generous. I stayed when an American who smelled of hospital paid her ticket, gave her a ring, and wrote her into a will. And I stayed when he died and Alexia came back, padded with calm dollars and a borrowed elegance that never quite fit, like new shoes that rub your heel raw. I got stuck with the quiet half of the story. Lorenza's counted visits: 6, 9, 13 years old, summer flights, 3 weeks, then 15 days, then a weekend cancelled at the last minute. Voicemails, Christmas photos with catalog snow. I had to watch the word dad turn formal, hear her speak to me in English out of respect, as if the language itself could disinfect the distance. I learned not to ask, not to cry like a beaten dog left outside a door. I reinvented my hunger as work: double shifts, triple shifts, and the coffee jar became a bank account. The account became a partnership. The partnership, with patience, a buyout. No one noticed the buyout because I signed slowly, and I like blue ink. The restaurant where I'd worked 20 years, the one that prided itself on spotless tablecloths and a view of Portomaso Marina, changed hands once, then twice. In the war of egos and debts, numbers always win. When they offered me a small percentage, I smiled like someone who doesn't quite get it. When, behind their backs, I bought out the debts of the loudest partners, I didn't blow a trumpet. I waited. I'm good at waiting. Impatient people can't hear the sea. In Malta, you have to listen to the sea, it speaks softly. It warns you when the tide is rising, when the wind tilts wrong and you shouldn't go out. It tells you when the moment has come. The day I'm talking about was a Thursday that smelled like a foreign Saturday. October, limestone light golden, clean, the kind that makes walls look newly painted. Lorenza called 2 days before to tell me not to join the special dinner. She didn't say it cruelly: my daughter's cruelty is like clean glass. She said, "Dad, it's something for them, for William's circle. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." What she meant was, I don't want you there. You embarrass me in that setting. William O'Kelly, my son-in-law. Irish roots, money made in consulting that smells of expensive smoke. His parents, Nora and Patrick, had come to discover the Mediterranean roots of their daughter-in-law. And I, who've lived in St. Julian's all my life, was the piece that didn't fit their story. Where will it be? I asked, in that voice of mine that learned not to climb walls. At La Rada, Lorenza said quickly, as if answering might cure my curiosity. Then she added, a Portomaso classic. She corrected herself, our favorite restaurant when we visit. I nodded, let the call hang, and stood by the window, watching the Spinola church with that clock that sometimes runs a minute behind and no one fixes it, because here, even time is part of the scenery. Tourists passed in sandals, taking pictures with the Love Monument backwards, and a boy sold pastéis from a thermal box, wearing a faded Juventus shirt. Everyday life has its own liturgy. Once you understand it, you can open the gates of heaven or hell without anyone seeing the key. I wasn't going to tell her that La Rada, that Portomaso classic, no longer belonged to the people she thought. That the manager she remembered, the one who used to greet her with a glass of Prosecco and gold-button smiles, now calls me sir when no one's watching. I wasn't going to tell her that the tuna steak she fell in love with at 20 has a new supplier, one I negotiated. Nor that the menu, pretending to be international, was tweaked to smell more like the harbor and less like a brochure. I wasn't going to say a word, because the blow lands cleaner when silence precedes it. Vengeance in gloves. I earned it. I went through my routine the day of the dinner. Walked up to the bridge over Buyout Bay, looked at the Church of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, its facade like a Baroque cake, and breathed in the sour iodine while I counted the steps toward Paceville, where, at that hour, the world still sleeps off its hangover. St. Julian's has two faces, those who come to forget, and those who can't forget a thing. I belong to the second kind. I had breakfast at the same table as always, bitter coffee, bread with tomato, oil thick as a serious promise. Checked my phone, Alexia's message, don't be upset. It's for everyone's good. That everyone's good carries the shape of her voice, the one that learned to float through rooms with hanging chandeliers. Alexia and her silk dresses that grazed the floor but never touched the earth. I divorced her with 22 years of distance laid between us. Sure of who I'd been, not of who I'd become. She traveled, loved a dying man with the composure of the timely, became a widow with dignity, and learned to drink expensive wine without flinching. She once called to tell me she was grateful for life. I kept counting income streams, calibrating the restaurant's air conditioning in summer so the rich wouldn't see their sweat reflected in the silverware. That evening, at 6:30, I dressed. Dark suit, white shirt, clean shoes. At 63, you understand that power dresses in ordinary clothes. I walked toward Portomaso Marina. The wind slipped through the stone corridors between buildings, carrying the faint music of dishes being set. La Rada gleamed behind glass, glowing with that kind of light that never photographs well, too warm, too intimate. I built that warmth. I bought it. But light doesn't know about deeds or ownership, it touches everyone just the same. I pushed the door open slowly. The maitre saw me before I saw him, and his expression wore the double life of those who serve, half for the public, half for the backroom. Mr. Maresca, he said, tilting his head. The table is ready, as requested. Thank you, Angelo. Let it all flow, I told him. Once again, the theater of power comes down to telling someone else let it flow, as if the world runs itself. But behind it all there had been calls, plans, low strings, chosen wine. My family's table sat by the glass, facing the dark water, yachts swaying like sated animals. I saw them before they saw me. Alexia, in a blue dress that gave her an air of nobility, she'd learned to inhabit her body like a borrowed room. Lorenza, in a simple, serious dress, her mother's eyes in my hands, nervous, kneading the tablecloth. William, that man in a suit too tight, as if he were in a hurry even to sit. William's parents, Irish, with that complexion of fulfilled promises, people who believe everything in the world can be solved if you pay enough. They were laughing. Laughter is beautiful when it doesn't exclude you. When it does, it sounds like a door slammed in your face. I approached without a sound. You learn to enter a room without stirring the air, like those who carry trays of glasses to the edge and never spill a drop. I reached the table, and the first to notice me was William, who made that gesture that comes naturally to men who've practiced authority, 2 fingers, like calling a dog. Excuse me, he said in English, polite in a textbook kind of way. This table is private. We're having a family meeting. It is a private table, yes, I replied in Spanish, chewing each syllable without haste. And it is family. That's why I came. Lorenza looked at me as if I'd appeared in the middle of a storm she hadn't forecast. She said my name, Papa, almost a whisper, as though the way to ask me to leave was to forget that the words still belonged to me. Eno, please, Alexia cut in quickly. We agreed tonight, no. There are codes. There are, I nodded. That's why I'm here. Angelo arrived like a dancer with velvet hands. He carried a bottle of white wine I'd chosen for them. Placed it on the table with absolute discretion, as if I didn't exist, as if my presence were a beautiful accident. Patrick, William's father, made a comment about the wine. I caught half of it. Nora studied me with the kind of eyes a mother uses to inventory threats. William cleared his throat. Truly, sir, he began. More English, we might ask you to. William, I cut him off with the faintest smile. Mind your voice. This room remembers. Alexia tensed. She knew that tone in me. She'd heard it the night she told me she was leaving the country. I'd answered then with silence, the only language we still shared. She looked around, searching for an ally, but here, tonight, she would find none. I had decided that, too. I sat down. Didn't ask. I seated my body with the calm of someone returning home, touching his things without explanation. My hands rested on the linen. I felt its texture against my fingers. Linen has always soothed me, the way a rosary soothes others. I'm going to speak, and it'll be brief, I said. And in that instant, the air at the table thickened. I saw it in the way Nora set her glass down a heartbeat before it trembled. Some of you here think I'm too simple for this circle. You're right. I am. I don't say networking, I say friends from work. I don't say fine dining, I say good food and shut your mouth. I never took a picture with the Portomaso view behind me. I see it every night. I pay for it. Silence. A well-placed silence is worth more than a word. I gave them time to let that last syllable travel its full distance. Pago. Alexia swallowed. Lorenza narrowed her eyes the way she used to as a child, when something didn't quite add up. William smiled tight, a gesture that never reached his cheekbones. What are you saying, Dad? Lorenza asked, this time in Spanish, like someone reaching for solid ground. That this house is mine, I said. That the chef works for me. That the manager, the sommelier, the waiters now pretending not to stare, owe me their shifts, their tips, their vacation schedules. That the reservation under O'Kelly is also under Maresca. And that tonight, if you'd like, we can pretend none of it matters. We can have dinner. Talk about the weather in Dublin, or the lights in Times Square. Or we can use the time for something better. For once, we can look at each other. No one fully believed me until Angelo, with that immaculate loyalty of someone trained to obey flickers, leaned in and said, Boss, shall we serve the first course? The word did what it had to do. Alexia tilted her head toward me, those eyes that haven't belonged to me in years, and asked, Since when? Since you thought I wouldn't know what to do with pain, I said, not meeting her gaze. Since you left and turned our daughter into a visitor. Since the day I came home, opened the fridge, and found a can of beer and a carton of eggs. Since that day. I did the math, Alexia. I worked the shifts. I made deals while others took naps. And I learned to smile with my voice. William stepped in, with that blend of hauteur and mercy that only men who think the world is an elevator they're always riding upward can master. No need to make a spectacle, he said. We can talk outside if you like. This is about Lorenza and our family. No, I replied, gently. This is about Lorenza and her father. And her mother. And the guests at her table, who might like to know that in Malta, when someone says my house, they're not always talking about walls. Sometimes they mean a place, a neighborhood, the sea. And I never left any of the three. The first course arrived, marinated lampuki, lemon oil, fennel. The aroma opened something in everyone's memory. Food has that cruelty, it takes you somewhere you didn't plan to visit and leaves you there, barefoot. Nora tasted it and murmured, beautiful. Patrick nodded, as though the stiff British in him had relaxed for a moment, and the man who simply eats and gives thanks had surfaced. I looked at Lorenza. Her eyes watered. I saw it clearly, the way you see a wave before it breaks. I didn't invite you to my graduation, Lorenza said, caught in a late attack of honesty. I told you not to come. I didn't want you at my wedding because I thought Harry and Zoe, from the firm, would laugh. I thought. You thought the smell of dish soap would give me away, I finished for her, without bitterness. That my hands would shine too much under the lights. That your world would notice mine. I thought I was protecting you, she said, a blush of misplaced kindness coloring her cheeks. I thought I was sparing you an awkward moment. I drink just fine, I answered, smiling the way one does when the knife's already in, and you've decided not to twist it. Alexia took a deep breath. She placed her palms on the table, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times, always right before she spoke a frightened truth. I never imagined you'd do this, she said. I never imagined you'd make yourself this rich? I offered. I'm not rich, Alexia. I'm an owner. It's different. Money slips through your fingers like sand. Ownership waits for you when you return. And here, though it's hard for you to believe, I'd been returning all along. The second course came like a bridge, ravioli stuffed with ricotta and mint, tomato sauce with capers from Gozo. Angelo bent toward me again, and with a small gesture I asked him to serve the wine I'd kept aside for Patrick, a mineral white that tastes of our island's stone churches. He inhaled, closed his eyes, and said, "Ah. Some men only trust the world once a wine completes its circle." "So," said William, his smile gone, "what exactly are we supposed to do?" "Thank you?" "You're supposed to eat," I said. "To look around. To remember that the next time you talk about a social circle, the circle might just close around your throat. And you're supposed to listen to me for 5 more minutes. That's all." I was clear. My voice is the voice of a man who tallies sums, adding until the total comes, without pause. "I never asked you for Lorenza, 6 months or a summer more," I said. "I asked for a chair. A chair at Christmas. A chair at her graduation. A chair at her wedding. You refused. You said my presence would make people uncomfortable. That I was too simple. That there were codes. That circle. That crowd of tall guests and heavy silverware. I understood. And I added chairs elsewhere, in this dining room, in this house. When a man learns not to disturb, he becomes efficient. And efficiency, Alexia, is the most discreet form of revenge." She pressed her lips together. I saw the calculation in her eyes too, that old arithmetic of a woman who'd learned to survive on another man's numbers. I admired her in silence. I always did, even when it hurt to see how she measured a staircase before climbing it. Lorenza tried to speak, but I chose to finish. "I didn't come to throw you out," I said. "That wouldn't be elegant. I came to sit down. To take my chair. And to tell you, daughter, that I'm not angry at your parties, at your polished smoke friends. Enjoy them. The world was given to you to taste. I only came to leave a new map. If you ever think I don't belong, come here. Look at the lamps, the tablecloths, the shine of the glasses. All this belongs to me as much as your first drawing on my fridge. That old fridge that used to hum and tremble at night, remember? It had magnets shaped like boats. I still keep them. Not out of nostalgia. Out of memory." There was a third course, grilled octopus, chickpea puree, charred lemon. The dining room opened and closed around us with the murmur of others. I could feel them all, the customers unaware they were witnesses to a family play. You learn to listen without looking straight on. To sense movement in the forks, pauses in the drinking, gestures that repeat themselves. Patrick spoke for the first time, with a kind of sobriety I liked. "Mr. Maresca," he said, still in English but with a respect no manual teaches, "I don't understand everything, but I understand something simple: you love your daughter. And love, when it's real, isn't elegant." "It isn't," I agreed. "It's clumsy and constant, like the sea beating at the same rock, again and again." Alexia sighed. She lifted her glass, stopped halfway, switched hands, stared at the lamp's reflection in the crystal. I know her. That meant she was rowing toward a clear shore. "All right," she said. "What do you want?" That question, so basic, so rooted in real accounting, pleased me. Desire, in singular form. Not, "What do you need?" Not, what do you expect? What do you want? I want you to step out of the word shame, I told her. To get out of it the way you'd get out of a car going nowhere. I want you to explain to our guests, to your son-in-law, to your daughter, that Malta isn't measured in cutlery or codes. That my simplicity paid for these lamps. And most of all, I want you to give me back the chair. The father's chair. The one you emptied of me and filled with substitutes. I can't give you back the years, she said, and for the first time, that voice I'd always known to be steady broke like wet wood. I can't give you back anything. I didn't ask for years. I asked for a chair. Don't send me to the kitchen of the world when there's a toast in the dining room. She nodded, slowly. I saw her accept, not out of fear, not defeat, but clarity. Alexia isn't cruel. She's simpler than that. She's the kind who steps onto any ship that passes, even when the sea is calm. I'm the one who stays. Sometimes staying is resistance. Sometimes it's waiting. Both are forms of intelligence. Lorenza cried. Quietly, the way those who've been taught not to make noise cry. She whispered. I'm sorry. The word hung between us like a fish leaping and slipping back into the water. We didn't catch it. We just watched it shine. I brushed the back of her hand, a small gesture, but my body felt the contact as if I touched something sacred. The color of that moment was gold, a low, late afternoon gold of St. Julian's. The fourth course, beef, slow-cooked, glazed, scented with rosemary. I cut a piece and allowed myself the luxury of closing my eyes. I may own the place, but not life. And there are things, when done right, that deserve reverence. William served himself a piece too, as though eating gave him time to think. He needed it. I understood his resistance. Men like him can't bear when the script is written without their pen. So, he said, chewing with decency, from today on, how would this work? It's simple, I replied. When you come back to Malta, the welcome dinner is here. And I'm here. Not as the owner, if that makes it easier, just as the father. You greet me, you invite me, you speak to me face to face. And when you go back to New York, or Dublin, or whatever place you invent next, I'll still be here. That's all I ask. And if we don't keep to that, he asked, his pride still flickering. Would you throw us out? No, I said. I'm not a doorman. I'm the owner. The owner is obeyed by time, not whims. The one who throws himself out stays outside. It happened to me for years. It's not pleasant. A dessert of figs and almonds brought sweetness to the end. The dining room had turned into a kind haze. Night, behind the glass, toyed with the boats, rocking them gently. I let myself look at the city multiplied in reflections. Portomaso like a postcard that never fades. Buyout with its church tracing a soft horizon. The streets of Paceville already pulsing low, about to turn up the volume. That's Malta, noisy, with a silent center. I live in that center. We finished eating. There was no loud toast, no speech. Only a strange calm, the kind that follows a tidy storm. When you deliver justice with gloves on, there's no blood, only peace. Angelo approached with the bill. He set it down discreetly, though he knew it made no sense. William picked it up by reflex, and I placed a hand over his. No need, I told him. It's done. I insist, he said. A man pays his own way. Then pay for something else, I offered. Pay for me to visit your home. One Sunday. No formality. In sneakers. I'll bring the wine. You set the table. A chair for me. That's the one thing I can't buy with a card. We looked at each other the way young bulls and old ones measure distance. He yielded, just for that night. We stepped out of the restaurant, and the October air clung to the skin like clean gauze. Alexia stopped at the door. She looked at me differently. That different wasn't love, it was something deeper, respect, laced with memory. I've never seen you like this, she said. I've always been like this, I replied. You're just seeing me now, in the light I switch on myself. She came close and kissed my cheek. Her perfume pulled me back to an old afternoon. Her, young, in a cheap floral dress, laughing in Spinola while a strand of hair blew across her face. I was poor in money and rich in patience. She, the reverse. Maybe that's why we didn't last. I hold no hatred. Hatred is a room without windows. Resentment, though, resentment is tidy, it lives in drawers with labels. Mine red chair. And tonight, that drawer feels lighter. We walked to the edge, where the water made small mouth sounds. Lorenza hung from my arm. Her thin fingers gripped me, at first with a gray kind of guilt that turned into something else. I don't know what. Maybe it's better if it has no name. Names are promises made too solid. Dad, she said, will you ever tell me how it happened? How you did all this? It's not a good story, I answered. It's boring. Work. Numbers. Waiting. Learning not to raise my voice. Watching proud men fall off their own chairs. Saving my I told you so's for when they no longer mattered. I still want to hear it, she insisted. I'll tell it to you in pieces, I said. So it lasts. We stood there. A group of English tourists stumbled by, drunk on their futures. A boy on a skateboard left a trail of reggaeton behind him. The church of Spinola looked at us with its forgiving clock. Nora and Patrick walked ahead, talking about the stone, the color, about how the light here forces you to believe in something. William came a few steps behind, touching Lorenza lightly on the back, a quiet protection I thanked without saying a word. Alexia leaned over the dock and murmured, almost like a prayer, it's beautiful. It is. And it's mine. That night I didn't fall asleep right away. I did what I always do, a short walk along Trici Eltbyra, looking at shop windows already closed, greeting the baker up before dawn, lighting a cigarette I never finish. I'm full of small superstitions. I thanked chance, my held tongue, my endurance. I thought about the old American who paid for Alexia's life. I owed him no hatred. He was my benefactor in reverse, he paid so I could discover the craft of waiting. The next morning, early, I went to the market. Bought fish with my hand, the proper way. The vendor called me boss and I nodded, respectfully. Power turns rancid if you don't air it out. Once a month, I wash dishes in my own kitchen, alone, in the middle of the night. Not as penance, just hygiene. The foam reminds you that grease comes off if the water's the right temperature. Everything in life depends on the right temperature. Alexia always lived on high flame. I learned to cook slow. At 63, the desire that remains is simple, to eat well, to look at the sea, to touch my daughter's hand now and then without her pulling away. Was there humiliation? Yes. They deserved it. Not out of cruelty, but arrogance. Arrogance eats standing up and never sees who washes the plates. This time they sat and watched. And I indulged in a pleasure not entirely healthy, I admit. Hearing the word boss spoken aloud in front of those who once denied me a chair. I won't forget it. I don't plan to repeat it. Power, repeated too often, breaks like fine glass. It's enough for me to recall it sometimes, like opening a drawer and breathing in the scent of an old shirt, just to know it existed. That same week, Lorenza came alone at noon. No warning. She sat where the family had sat and ordered a simple dish, spaghetti with oil and garlic. We talked for half an hour. I told her small things, how many times I ate leftovers from the kitchen, the winters when the heater broke and we warmed the dining room with our bodies, the tourist who choked on a fishbone and how I saved him with slaps I'd learned from watching videos. She told me about her life in Manhattan, how winter there is an elegant enemy and spring is a lover who only calls at night. I lent her my silences. A father's silences are clean towels, they dry without a sound. I saw her more often after that. I don't delude myself, time doesn't stretch like dough. But it can be made nourishing. She learned to enter through the employee's door without feeling out of place. She greets Angelo by name, and he winks. La Principessa, he says, out of habit now, not servility. Alexia was more measured. Short messages, no sugar. I accepted them all. I don't need honey. I need clarity. People talk about redemption as if it were a sport, cheers, ribbons breaking, photographs. No. Redemption is a dish eaten warm, without haste. It's a chair returning to its place, to its exact leg, standing steady. In my house, the father's chair sat for years against a wall, gathering a fine dust. I dusted it off that Thursday night, put it where it belonged, and sat down. No one came to move me. That's all. No more poetry than that. Sometimes I pass by the Love Monument in Spinola and see tourists posing, holding up the letters as if they were columns. I prefer to read it backward EVOL because that's the work, isn't it? The turning over. Love that stands without looking, calendar love, collapses with the first wind. The kind that turns around, rubs its eyes, and looks again, that kind can stay. I've learned to love backward. It serves me well. I know what you're thinking. Did I become one of them? A man in a suit, with a dining room of his own and measured laughter? No. I have no need to seem what I'm not. Sometimes I still come home with my hands smelling of lemon and soap. Sometimes I sit on the doorstep, listen to a neighbor arguing about the TV, a dog scratching wood, and I feel my kingdom is made of humble sounds. I didn't seek revenge for revenge's sake. I sought balance. It was necessary to set the table and count the chairs. If you're invited but not seated, you're standing by someone else's decision. I sat down by my own. That's the whole chapter. A rainy day, weeks later, Alexia called me. She said she'd dreamed of the old house where we began, walls damp with age, laughter floating like smoke. She asked if I was truly angry, or if what I carried was a discipline. It's a discipline, I told her. Anger went cold years ago. I left it in the fridge next to the beer can and the eggs. Now I use it as ice to keep the important things fresh. What's important? She asked. The chair, I said. She laughed. Her laugh still had that bell tone that hurts me sometimes. She invited me for coffee down by Baluta. I went. She arrived with a transparent umbrella, wearing the same blue as on the night of the dinner, but softer now, unarmored. We walked to the railing and watched the rain sketch the sea, as if someone were gently erasing it with a pencil. She said she sometimes thinks she chose wrong, that she confuses decisions with victories. I believed her. We made a small pact, to speak without collecting debts. Not for forgiveness out of hygiene. You can't live inside an audit forever. I'll tell you something I've never told anyone, that Thursday, I didn't win. The chair did. And that's the closest to justice I can imagine. The rest, what looked like humiliation, was only a mirror. They saw themselves as they'd seen me for years. And they didn't like it. They learned a cheap and useful lesson, that the world is round, and so are tables. Some nights, I close the dining room late. I stay alone, turn off the lamps one by one, run my hand along the backs of the chairs, and whisper my thanks. The limestone releases its dust of sunlight, and it makes me think of my father's skin, bricklayer's skin, always marked with traces of work. The smell of a damp cloth brings back the old house I shared with Alexia, the first one, with a mattress where we made love with anger, tenderness, and hunger. Those memories don't ask for space. They hang themselves like pictures that know where they belong. If I told you there's a perfect ending, I'd be lying. There isn't. Every night rewrites itself in a different light. But I can leave you a true image. Me, standing on La Rada's temporary terrace, looking out at Portomaso, the yacht lights, the echo of voices fading. In the corner, a table. A single empty chair. Not because anyone is missing, but because I keep it that way. For when they return. For when it's time to sit again and speak the truth in the lowest voice one has. I've learned to master pain with cold intelligence. Not to wound. Not to win. But to hold someone's gaze when they look away. To enter a room and have the air recognize me. To hear a maitre say boss when he must, and Eno when we're alone. To live in the city where I was born and know that, if you walk its streets long enough, they eventually apologize. If one day you pass through St. Julian's and sit in my house, because I can't call it anything else now, order the pepper-crusted tuna. It's not the best in the world, let's not exaggerate. But it's cooked honestly, to the right point. And when they serve it and you feel tempted to take a photo, don't. Put the phone away. Look around. Watch the hands of those who serve you. There's a story pressed between their knuckles. This dining room was built with those hands. Mine among them. I don't know if I humiliated them or simply gave them back their reflection. I don't know if I redeemed myself or merely learned to breathe better. The only thing I know for certain is this. That night, I took back my chair. And ever since, the sea sounds a little closer. And that is something.